Hi class, so now you've completed the module questions on personality, and these are modules 40, 41, and 42. As far as a couple take-home points from these modules, first I'm going to talk about Freud and his importance, and then I'm really going to talk about how the field of personality psychology is very broad and diverse today. So there are actually very few strict followers of Freudian theory today. But starting with Freud, Freud is the founder of personality psychology, and he is considered the founder because he's really the first person to put together a theory of personality and a complete theory of personality. So Freud talked about the structures within personality, the id, the ego, and superego. He talked about how those structures interact with one another, psychodynamics, and the conflict that especially the id and the superego experience with one another. Remember, the ego is the part of the personality that needs to find a compromise between the id and the superego. And if the ego cannot find this compromise, it experiences anxiety and engages in defense mechanisms. So he put together the structure of personality. He also put together stages of development. They're called the psychosexual stages of development. But essentially the importance here is that he was delineating childhood as an important stage of life. Now I know we have covered the human development modules already, but Freud is one of the first people in psychology who really delineated childhood as a special developmental time. Children were essentially envisioned as miniature adults. By age 11 during Freud's time, you were an adult and you were treated as such. And Freud was the first person to say, nope, there's things going on during this time. Okay? So he not only looked at aspects, components of personality, id, ego, superego, the psychosocial development, but also how what happened in childhood and your relationship with significant others during childhood can affect you in your adult life. So again, he really put together a complete theory of personality. Not to imply that all aspects of his theory are valid, but he was one of the first people to really put it together. So most early theorists, for instance, Carl Jung and Erik Erikson, studied with Freud. So remember we talked about Erikson in the human development modules, Erikson's psychosocial stages. You can actually draw similarities between what is happening in Erikson's first 5 stages and Freud's 5 stages of psychosexual development. Freud is having an impact there. Okay? Erikson thought that society had a much bigger impact than Freud did. That's one key difference among others. So Freud not only had the first theory of personality, he influenced others early on in the development of this field. Currently, the field of personality is very, very diverse. So other theorists within the field include humanists, positive psychology. More recent field in psychology is actually influenced by the humanists. The humanists put a trust in people, that people would make smart choices, that they would strive towards psychological health and fulfillment. Another perspective in personality psychology is the cognitive perspective, which focuses on how people construe their environments, how they make sense of events, and how the thought process of individuals affects their personality. Okay? Behaviorism is another approach, and we learned in the learning modules that behaviorism emphasizes the effects of the environment, is a deterministic field, so positive and negative reinforcement and positive and negative punishment will determine your behavior. That's according to Skinner. Okay? And a more recent approach, although not completely new by any means, is the trait approach. The trait approach entails the big 5 personality factors. The idea of the trait approach is that you can describe people according to envision a central or a figure in the field, Gordon Allport. We'll talk about central traits, and if you tap a person, if you measure a person's central trait, then you can understand the essence of their personality. Okay? Traits are assumed to be stable, but the display of personality, thus the display of traits, is going to be affected by the situation. So again, currently personality psychology is a very diverse field. Freud had a great impact in the beginning, but his approach is certainly not the predominant approach today. Okay, and at my take-home points for personality.